is over 1% of the total price, it suddenly becomes relevant. The SE214XT ARGB is a simple 4-heat pipe cooler that revives the approach of the old Hyper 212. It's dirt cheap, it offers absolutely nothing of any kind of impressive or innovative ease of installation or other features. Its plastics feel like they're from McDonald's toys, its cold plate is Spartan, and yet somehow the thing can handle moderate heat loads. It won't handle a 250-watt CPU in our test suite with any level of satisfaction. It was well past the 90s in thermal throttling, but it's good enough for cheaper and lower power CPUs with users on more extreme budgets. This would be a good consideration if you're buying a used CPU to save money, or maybe you just need something that ticks the good enough box to get some kind of computer back online. In our 123-watt heat load on AM4 last round, the ID Cooling SE214XT ARGB held 58 degrees delta T over ambient when at 37.9 dBA. This was tested with our old noise methodology, not in the chamber. That had it more noise efficient for the result than the lower ranked Hyper 212 RGB cooler. It was bordering on Noctua's aged NHU 12S. The Thermalright Assassin Spirit ran at the same noise levels and a little more than 1 degree cooler, and is likewise a cheap cooler itself, but at $16.79 for the Spirit, somehow, and this is really weird to say, it's almost 11% more expensive. What a bizarre world of coolers we live in, but it's pretty cool. That wasn't intentional. In our 14900 KF 200-watt heat load, and with 100% fan speed, landed at 60.6 degrees Celsius delta T. That had the SE214XT ARGB as the worst performer on the chart, but still somehow capable of holding a stable operating temperature. So in other words,
humanity never conceals its desire to control the heavens, and I'm no exception.
Time to twirl! Watch your head. A massive 9-degree improvement, showing how big the pulp is between what we've tested so far on this one. Our 25 dBA noise normalizing testing still has it at the bottom of the chart for this heat load. But even at this slightly reduced speed, it's still capable. It holds on and it doesn't thermal throttle. We wouldn't call the SE214XT,
or maybe I'll take it off.
But we do think it's one of the best in its class at a seemingly impossibly high price, especially considering it's freight to ship to wherever it's sold all around the world. But if you need a cooler, just get it going, and you're okay with not having any installation or fancy new features at all. You just need something that gets you by, and this is a good value. ID Cooling seems poised to challenge Thermalright in the future. Next up is the category that everybody skips to in the timestamps. Yes, we're calling you out, but it's fine with us because it's the most important category. This is for the best noise normalized thermal. Because we have both liquid and air coolers in the charts this roundup, we're assigning the award to one liquid cooler and to one air cooler. Weighted equally between them. The Arctic Liquid Freezer 3
or maybe I'll take it off.
Best noise normalized thermals award for both overall and for liquid performance, but air can't be expected to compete at the same level of liquid, and there's a completely viable reason you'd want air instead. So for air coolers, it goes to the Noctua NHC15G2. However, we do have a runner-up award for the ID Cooling A720. We've listed because it's $100 cheaper than the NHC15G2. But this is a thermal category, and it's really just numbers focused. So let's focus on the charts. Starting with the Liquid Freezer 3, Arctic's revision of its Liquid Freezer 2 tried a number of new things. It shipped with a mandatory contact frame with its Intel variation. This complicates matters in some ways, and it's not always for the best. We found that Arctic's contact frame was worse than other options on the market, but its cooler design was such that the other options couldn't be used instead. That was unfortunate. It still, however, was better than the installed ILM from Intel. For thermals, the Liquid Freezer 3 is just as impressive as its predecessor, and its price is similarly competitive. In 200-watt testing on AMD with our older noise-normalized approach in the room, the Liquid Freezer 3 was the clear chart topper when we limited pump speed to 70%, which helped us reduce noise from the pump and allowed us to use that noise budget on the fan RPM instead. Running the pump at 100% and sacrificing some of the noise budget for it, it was still tied for second place, behind only itself, and matched with a cooler that's now banned in the US. The next closest non-Arctic option is the Trinity Performance from Lian Li, which is specifically performance-focused in its design. In our Intel 250-watt heat load thermals on a 14900 KF, also noise normalized, the Liquid Freezer 3 with its mandatory frame climbs to the top of the chart. It's ahead of the Frozen Prism by enough to not be margin of error or test variance. It's also ahead of the Light Loop 360 and predictably ahead of all the air coolers. Now, if you threw a contact frame on these other coolers as well, they'd climb up in the ranks too. The Liquid Freezer 3 remains a top recommendation of ours for performance, though we do find its contact frame solution frustrating for Intel. It's an area where if they rework it, they should actually be able to bump up the performance even more by better distributing the pressure. We talk about that in our review though. On AMD, it's much simpler. Moving to air coolers, the victor of noise normalized for pure performance is the Noctua NHD15G2 HPC for our Intel 250 watt bench, or LBC for AMD. Previously, we found that the G2 HPC outperformed even its closest competitor, the A720 from
Or maybe I'll take it off.
A couple degrees might not sound like a lot, but when you look at these charts, it's often the difference between the top and the
Humanity
bottom
never
of them.
conceals its
So
desire to control the heavens, and I'm no exception.
Between air coolers is rare. Noctua's work on the high base convexity cooler really works for Intel. It's also the recipient of our best mechanical design category, so we'll save all that discussion for a few moments now. On AMD 200 watt testing when noise normalized, we also found Noctua's D15G2 LBC, or flatter model, to be the current best noise normalized air cooler result by pure numbers objectively, behind only a stack of liquid cooler. As some honorable mentions for runners up here, since most builders are in the market for something cheaper for air cooling, cooling frozen A720 flash takes a clean second place in both our Intel and AMD CPU cooler testing. The frozen A720 is well balanced between the two platforms. It's a relatively large tower, so check your clearance
I'll
on the
take
case.
it off.
They have cooling issues in some cases. But a $56 price point makes it one of the more affordable competitive coolers. And it's $100 below the D15G2. So definitely worth putting on your radar. The next award is for the best mechanical design. This covers the total execution of every physical aspect of the cooler. That's pressure distribution, laser scans, ease of installation features, a highly usable design, aesthetic, and the cooling itself. This year, we can easily give it to the Noctua NHD15G2. Like last year's winner for the category, which was the Assassin 4, Noctua's NHD15G2 isn't a good value cooler. $150, which is insane for a cooler. But this category isn't for value. It's one that completely ignores it. You can appreciate
or maybe I'll take it off.
It's extremely well built, and it takes careful consideration of factors often ignored by other cooling solutions. The NHD15G2 was secretly developing something similar to what we showed with some custom-made Scythe cooler cold plates that we had Scythe make earlier this year, which was trying to game the cold plate convexity to better match the CPU heat spreader's surface concavity or flatness. Noctua was working on this for years, and it launched 3 models. The standard G2, HPC, or high base convexity, and LBC, low base convexity, so sorry for long base viewers, it's not new this time. These models subtly modify the convexity or flatness of the cold plate to better pair with deeply deformed Intel 13th, 14th, 12th gen CPUs, or use the flatter one for the relative flatness of AMD.
Humanity never conceals its desire to control the heavens, and I'm no exception.
With the LBC. Standard is when to work on anything. We used our scanner that we bought before testing on G15G2 and discovered that the names really matched the curvature of the standard basically in the middle. We found that this wasn't a gimmick, and that there were actual measurable and repeatable differences in benchmarks. Whether you've noticed those, especially at the price, maybe not, but it's still very impressive. Noctua also lands on this list for its careful attention to detail on the fan, which it pairs and matches a slight RPM offset intentionally in order to avoid a potential beat frequency phenomenon that could be annoying for some users. We have a whole interview with one of Noctua's team members to talk about the engineering topic behind it. The D15G2 also had excellent pressure distribution as a combination of mounting hardware and the cold plate, shown in our mix of pressure maps across AM4 and Intel. An included washer mod added some further fine-tuning and small touches.
Or maybe I'll take it off.
An attempt to just try and bolt on some value add with the high price. But it was a nice touch. Thermally, the D15G2 didn't blow away any of the other coolers by massive margins, but it is definitely an improvement.
Humanity never conceals its desire to control the heavens, and I'm no exception.
In several of our charts, the D15G2 was technically the new bet. Now, it is a good cooler. Of course, spending $120 more than competition doesn't mean it's suddenly competing with a 360mm liquid cooler of the same price, but the G2 with the HPC solution and a washer mod on Intel ran at 52.5 degrees Delta T over ambient in our review results, load, which was better than coolers like the Fearless Assassin by several degrees. It's impressive, but predictably, this cooler is behind high-performance liquid cooler. The physics just won't support heating water and the huge surface area of radiant. Being realistic
or maybe I'll take it off.
and Noctua never claims to be better than a 360 ml water cooler. We appreciate what Noctua has done with its mechanical and thermal engineering. This is why we do this. It's to look at cool stuff that really tries something new, and a lot of times these learnings can be applied to the cheaper products later. The company may move slowly, but at least with this one, it moved with purpose. As we said in our review, this is the type of thing you buy if you have your heart set on it and you can afford it. You're buying Noctua's name with the G2. You are not buying some massive, impossible increase in performance, but in the very least, Noctua has shown that its support is good. It has already delivered one free update for owners of the G2 with a relatively minor rattle complaint. So well done, Noctua, for the NHD15 G2's mechanical engineering. All right, so that's it for this roundup. Really fun as always. I love doing this kind of stuff because it just lets us look back at the really good stuff in the past year or so. In the case of coolers, they don't really age as long as the mounting hardware carries forward. So better stuff comes out, which is always good, but at the same time, you can keep using stuff that's a few years old, or in the case of the original D15, I mean, technically like a decade old. It's just that they do become a little less efficient over time versus modern competitors, at least when you look at price. So anyway, kind of fun. We have best CPUs on the channel already. If you want to look up what the best options are for this year, that includes prior tests as well. And we also have best cases online if you want to get caught up on that. And that one was particularly exciting because we skipped it for the end of the year last year because we were revamping our methodology. And so now we have it back, and you should check it out. It's a really fun piece. It's a lot more coolers we want to test. Looking forward to doing more. Check back as always for that. You can go to store.gamersaccess.net to support our roundups and our next year of testing directly while getting something cool in return. Use the code for 10% off, and check out the NZXT video if you didn't see it. And otherwise, subscribe for more. Thanks for watching. We'll see you all next time.
Welcome back to the Torque Test channel. The Torque Test team over here sees a lot of tools throughout a year. Some are fantastic and some are fantastically not. Either way, we hope it's fun to find out along the way with us each Friday, but among all of those, here are 10 tools we tested this year that stood out, each of them linked below. Number 10, impact socket adapters from Milwaukee, specifically their short length, not their extra stubby length, and for standard length, as it turns out, yeah, DeWalt. We've broken a lot of these over the years, so we set out to find the brand that will do that the least often. And as it turns out, the old ketchup and mustard brands, despite this not even being a power tool, stood out amongst the rest for their respective lengths. Impact drivers are getting more and more powerful thanks in large part to these two guilty brands, so it makes a lot of sense they would need something that can withstand their own tools. And other brands' impact drivers, with a gauntlet of increasingly brutal impact drivers, we put these through. Milwaukee stood out the most there, and with continued use these past months, we've confirmed the specific DeWalt model linked below is right up there with it as well, now set to save us about $100 to $200 a year by our math in impact driver adapters. Nice. Number 9, cheap click-type torque wrenches and digital torque adapters. Not cheap in the sense that they are worthless or fragile, because these days, they just aren't. These simply cost less than most of the stuff we're normally using, but in testing, crushed it. Some didn't, let's be clear, on the cheaper end of options, but the Tecton here and half-inch, 3/8, quarter-inch torque wrenches will take a beating and still test more accurate than even they advertise. And this TagVit digital torque adapter was scary accurate for one of the lowest cost versions we could even find. These are nice for more sensitive torquing tasks that allow you to watch the torque value climb in real time. And the clicker type is nice for a repetitive job like wheels and suspension. Considering a 250 foot-pound digital torque wrench I'd consider buying starts at around $200. $40 for something you can slap on the end of a half-inch breaker bar or ratchet and become, in effect, a digital torque wrench is pretty awesome. Number 8, we don't keep all the tools we buy, just most of them. This DeWalt 6-inch FlexVolt grinder, though, was already spoken for by a buddy of mine who said he wanted it after we were done testing it. Sorry, Chad, I still got it because this thing rocks. It makes gobs of sauce. Like on a dyno, it produced 1270 watts at the dyno. That's about 1900 at the tool, more than you're usually going to get out of our 120 volt grid. Though the Metabo is an amazing choice if you do need to grind all day in a corded option. Can recommend. So it's making around 20% more than the next closest 6-inch grinder, this DeWalt, that we tested, and that makes it good for everything, I find. Safes that you forgot the code on and left your passport in the day before heading to Japan, you name it. The 6-inch disc opens up a lot more opportunities than you think, coming from a guy who pretty much used 4.5 inches his whole life. And the power for that disc to just never slow down on you when you push it through stuff makes you feel like Iron Man with a new suit upgrade. Just opens so many more doors for you, whether they're locked or not. It's pretty good. Number 7, thread locking compound that's somehow not Loctite for the first time in my life, because in testing this brand, a skunk, it just edged it out and it pours out in a way I prefer to boot, not leaking down on the bolt as much. And not simply in torque to break free, but torque before versus after baking to advertised temperature limits, the effects oil has on that holding ability, and the effects of vibration on finger tight versus torque down. This $8 to $10 bottle of stuff on the whole bested the $16 to $20 name brand stuff from Henkel. Not a good rule to apply to most no-name brands on the sites like Amazon, because some of them are just not great. But when using this stuff only exclusively on repairs and projects for months now, haven't turned back. Don't throw out your Loctite, but if you need some thread locker, it's worth a look for less coin from everything we can measure. Number 6, not a new tool by any means, but new to us as we've been able to double our air tool capacity this year, Harbor Freight's 1-inch air earthquake impact wrench. This is a tool that's gone up little to nothing in price over the past few years, as our wallets have been able to seemingly buy less and less, and yet it currently sits atop our largest, most powerful impact ranking we have, the large drive size leaderboard, in first place at $299, or less than half most comparable options right now. It knocks on the door of 2,000 foot-pounds like nothing else we've tested, and while it has little finesse or trigger control or any creature comfort features and weighs more than most, it puts in work, and our comments section mostly only had good things to say about it in recognition to the torque this delivers and how long it's been in service to them. Considering how many Harbor Freight locations there are, having access to something like this that doesn't suck in our opinion is a pretty big deal for you diesel and heavy equipment guys, and something this old and barbaric making it into this year's top 10 just gives me good vibes. Number 5, the Denali, or formerly Denali, now Amazon Basics electric screwdriver. If you stepped out of a time machine in 1920 and told folks you invented a cordless screwdriver, they'd tell you, we already got one of those. But no, this simple $24 to $25 tool was the cheapest we bought in a roundup of models that we didn't expect much from. So it started off in price with this one, and to date still hasn't been beat overall. We even put together a second episode with pricey Mac tools and Japanese vessel screwdrivers. Still no dice. It remains at the top defiantly. It's sort of silly at this point. I feel like it goes out of stock every time we mention it, but it's at the point DeWalt had to release an all-new powered screwdriver recently to try and top it. Well, I'm just making that up, but maybe it's good, maybe it's not. Let us know any others that we've missed that you'd like to see as we head on to likely pistol convertible models. Surely something eventually has to beat this tenacious teal troublemaker. Number 4, the DCF 964, or DeWalt's Project Ludicrous in 3/4 inch drive. 3/4 inch rarely makes as much a splash as it should compared to 1/2 inch drive in cordless tools. This tool says, nah, hold my beer. 1,167 foot-pounds on this channel is no joke. These are hard-fought figures over here. It wasn't long ago only 1-inch drive cordless was making this arena of torque and requiring this dyno to not lose data from literally stretching out our test bolts. 3/4 inch drive made the 1/2 inch version of this tool just better in nearly every way. It's less of a rodeo to hold on to when VTEC kicks in, stays more planted on the socket and bolt head than the 1/2 inch. It delivers more sauce than any other anvil swapped platform we've tested, like from small to large anvil, by torque numbers and by percentage. And the sockets just prefer it. Less hopping around, less wallowing out of the square drive. It checks all the boxes for us. It's beastly, comparatively cheap when looking at stuff in this neighborhood. Plenty of batteries you might already own, and it's just cool. Do you need it? Maybe yes, maybe no, but should you need it, it's gonna get the job done, or you're probably in a much more dire situation than a boulder nut simply being tight or rusted. That thing's gonna need to be liquid to be removed. And that's the sort of arsenal progression I can get behind. Number 3, making it into the top 3, we somehow have, yes, it's been a wild year, Walmart Hypertough. Their Gen 2 stuff, in this case, their new compact impact wrench. This thing is currently, when considering torque claims, price, size, and performance, number 1 in cordless on our rankings of everything compact impact we've ever tested. 32 examples, and it's at the top. A big reason of that is because it's $59.88 as a kit. But not only because of that, it also made 323 foot-pounds, which somehow, always saying a lot of the word somehow when talking about this tool, it beats a DeWalt DCF 921. That's over 5 times as much as a kit. When a tool like this doesn't suck to this level of unsuckitude, and whose kit costs as much as a name brand battery charger, it falls into that category of it doesn't matter if you don't own their batteries, keep the battery attached to the tool and treat it as its own thing altogether. It's $60 and that includes a 3-year warranty. Oh, but the quality of my Chinese made tool is so much better than that Chinese made tool. Well, okay, perhaps that could be true. Then buy 3 of these for 9 years of warrantyable service over that time, and you're coming in at just over half the price total instead of a fifth of it. I'd instead buy the 4 amp hour battery to go along with it, or the mid torque that comes with that battery, but it's hard to envision a lot of money being wasted here either way. We've bought their other Gen 2 models. They're slotted for the dyno coming up. Looking forward to that. Coming in at number 2, compacts made a splash this year. It may not cost as little as a Walmart tool, but it made the most torque of any cordless compact we've ever tested, including that last one. An overall tool that's noticeably smaller and lighter. Noticeably smaller as an M12 seemed to fit everywhere you'd think of using an impact wrench. Their last one was one of our most often used tools around here, despite other tools making more torque than it in the past 2 years. Milwaukee said, we can fix that. Its trigger modes interface, they should have called it what it is, a compromise to fit a larger motor in there. Frankly, I think that would have been better marketing than calling it a feature. We stuffed a big block in here so large for a compact that even these buttons on top don't fit anymore. That said, just leave it in high, use the trigger to modulate the torque, and try to not find your way into neutral. 408 foot-pounds from something that's smaller than their own platform's flashlights, not quite in the number 1 spot this year for a couple of annoyances and needing its largest battery to do what it says it can, but when they announced it, I had heavy doubts it would even be doing that, and well, mostly I was just wrong. It moved the goalposts for all brands wanting to play at this size range in the impact world. It is a game-changer tool that every technician, no matter your favorite color, should test drive for a week to see how much it can really get done. And at number 1, we have Pushy, our new favorite push-button wrench tester. Well, no, okay, the winner here in tools is the Craftsman Overdrive, Stanley's mostly copy of their own Max RBRT for $75 instead of $310. But you gotta hand it to Pushy. We open up a book of ASME proof standards and just press a button and he tells you how well the wrenches do compared to those standards, and more, allowing us to include hex materials that match grade 5 and grade 8 bolts, as well as the perfect laboratory hardened hexes engineers like to use. And all that's to measure peak capability, as well as just how well these tools grip onto everyday fasteners like the less than perfect examples you're going to be using them on. And when it comes to that, new to us and most of the world, walking into a store, the Craftsman Overdrive wrenches do that incredibly well. Coming in at less than Harbor Freight Icon stuff, and coming within spitting distance of a $500 set of Snap-on Flink Drive Plus. This set comes in a mighty useful compact carrying case and signals to us that Craftsman hasn't let out its last dying breath in the world of quality hand tools. The 6-point box ends on these wrenches mean they maybe shouldn't be your only wrenches, in our opinion, but they certainly will sometimes be the only wrenches that you're going to find within driving distance or able to simply click to add to cart that will remove bolt heads that look more octagonal than hex or more rusted appendage of your vehicle. The tinted chrome is cool, they feel quite good in use. These were a real ringer in a debate that was supposed to be between Harbor Freight and Snap-on, coming out of left field to really surprise a lot of us. We love finding little stuff like this in our testing, and it's a big reason we do what we do. And that wouldn't be possible without you guys. A big heartfelt thank you to you watching this video or other videos, to you, the person who clicked on our Etsy store, and especially to you, Wholesome Dude, dropping comments in our comment section that, remarkably, year after year, is an actually decent place to scroll down to and not feel like you need to take a break from the internet for a while. Critiques are welcome, you don't have to jump on the hype train, but against all odds, we continue to have one of the least toxic to each other communities I've had the pleasure to experience on a day-to-day basis, and it's why we as a team continue to comment with actual thought-out responses to your questions and suggestions instead of letting YouTube's AI empty canned response bots that they give channels like ours access to type generic responses to you to increase engagement. Thanks for allowing us to enjoy another year of buying as many tools as we want to and coming along for that ride with us as we basically poke these tools with measuring sticks in the best way that we can figure.
It seems like Have you been shopping for clothes lately and noticed the price tag? Talk about sticker shock, clothes have become so expensive. So the question is, when you get a stain in those clothes, how do you get that stain out? Well, let's find out. We'll see which laundry detergent does the best job at removing 6 different common stains. Then we'll see which one does the best job at removing awful smells like this gear oil. At a price of only $4 for 22 ounces or 18 cents per ounce, the least expensive brand we'll be testing is made by Shout. They claim it clings, penetrates, and lifts stains. We're going to test that. They claim it's 50 times more concentrated than in-wash powder. And the Shout is made in USA. This is some motor oil from the 1970s that has graphite in it. This will cause a really bad oil stain, and I'll apply it to 14 pieces of fabric taken from a white cotton t-shirt. Now that the test pieces are saturated in oil, let's wash them, and we'll use a Tide Pod to remove as much of the stain as possible. I'll set the machine on extra small load and hot water. All of the test samples have finished washing, and I've also dried them. And these test pieces are pretty badly stained. Let's prepare some white cotton t-shirts for our first test. I'll use a permanent marker to create 6 test zones. Let's go ahead and prepare 14 shirts for testing using common products that cause bad stains. Pigment stains are caused by coffee, tea, red wine, and ink. I'll add a tablespoon of grape juice to the top left corner of the t-shirt. Now let's add some ketchup to the left center test area. At the bottom left, let's add some gear oil, which not only causes a stain, but it smells awful. Let's add some really powerful Cousin Eddie style coffee to the top right corner. Mustard is a very common dye-based stain that's very hard to remove. Soy sauce includes an oil, dye, and protein, so this will be a very tough stain for the stain removers to remove. Stains become more challenging to tackle once they've dried. So I'll leave the t-shirts out in the direct sunlight until they're completely dry. It's been over 12 hours and the stains are all dried. So let's kick off our first test using Shout. I'll thoroughly saturate all the stains, and then I'll allow the stain remover products to soak for 5 minutes. I'll also saturate the oil stain test pieces. I'll also saturate a spot on a new red cotton t-shirt to see if the stain remover causes fading. And 5 minutes is up, so let's toss the 2 t-shirts and the oil stain cloth into the washing machine. I'll wash the clothes in hot water, and I'll also use the Tide Pod. This is a top loader machine which does a great job of agitating the laundry, and it does a great job of draining all the water from the machine at the end of the wash cycle. And the wash cycle is finished for the 2 t-shirts and the oil stain test piece. And the Shout did a pretty good job at improving the stains, but the shirt is still stained in several areas. And the oil stain test piece sure does look a lot better. At a price of only $3 for 16 ounces or 19 cents per ounce is this spray and wash brand. They claim it gets the job done the first time. They claim it powerfully removes the toughest 7-day dried-in stains. We're gonna test that. And the spray and wash is made in USA. Spray on the stain, covering it completely. Wait 5 minutes maximum. Wash according to care label instructions in the warmest water recommended. I'll wash the clothes in hot water, and I'll also use the Tide Pod. And the wash cycle is finished, and the spray and wash did well on some stains and not so well on others. We'll know a lot more once the shirt is dried. At a price of $5 for 22 ounces or 23 cents per ounce is this Tide Rescue. Works on laundry as well as carpet and upholstery. It's supposed to remove all sorts of stains including wine, grass, blood, grease, dirt, and more. And the Tide Rescue is made in USA. Turn the sprayer to the on position. Spray directly onto stain, rub in, and wait for about 5 minutes. I decided not to scrub any of the stain removers since it would be almost impossible to scrub them equally. Wash with your normal detergent at the warmest setting that your fabric will accept. And 5 minutes has passed and the badly stained cloths are in the washer with the Tide Pod. And the Tide stain remover seems to have performed very well, possibly the best yet, but we'll know more once all the test pieces have been fully dried. At a price of $6 for 17 ounces or 35 cents per ounce is the pink stuff. If you're looking for a laundry detergent that can perform a miracle, this one claims to be the one. Vegan, what exactly does that mean? I really hope that none of these brands use chicken or cow parts. It includes an oxy stain remover. It claims that it's color safe. We're going to test that. And the pink stuff is made in the UK. Spray on both sides of the stain, leave for no longer than 5 minutes. Wash as normal following fabric care instructions. And the pink stain remover has also performed very well on several types of the stains. At a price of $9 for 22 ounces or 41 cents per ounce is this Zout brand. Stains gone, guaranteed. We're going to test that. And the Zout is made in USA. Spray to completely cover the stain and then rub in. Wait 1 to 5 minutes. Launder in the warmest possible water for fabric care instructions. And the Zout doesn't seem to have performed as well as the pink stain remover, but it's hard to say until the clothes are fully dried. At a price of $10 for 24 ounces or 42 cents per ounce is this Draft brand. It claims that it's made of 49% plant-based ingredients. Hypoallergenic. It's free of dyes, chlorine, and phosphates. And the Draft is made in USA. Just like with the other brands, the stained areas are completely saturated with the Draft, and the Draft spent 5 minutes going to work on the stains. And the Draft seems to perform better than the Zout, but it's still too early to say. At a price of $7 for 12 ounces or 58 cents per ounce is this OxiClean. They claim you can spray now and wash up to 7 days later. Safe for all colors and washable fabrics. Used for grass stains, grease stains, oil, and more. Includes 4 types of stain fighters. And the OxiClean is made in USA. Spray directly under the spot or stain until saturated. Let stand for 5 minutes or up to a week depending on the severity of the stain. Wash in the detergent in the warmest water that the fabric will accept. And the OxiClean Spray Stain Remover appears to be one of the best performers yet by really attacking most of the stains. At a price of $16 for 27 ounces or 59 cents per ounce is this Attitude brand. It's made from powerful ingredients sourced from plants and minerals. 100% vegan and cruelty-free. And the Attitude is made in Canada. Spray the Attitude directly onto stain. Rub the laundry stain remover into fabric and wait 5 minutes depending upon the severity of the stain. Wash with laundry detergent. And the Attitude also seems to perform well, but not quite as well as the OxiClean Spray. At a price of $5 for 6 ounces or 81 cents per ounce is this OxiClean Gel Stick. They claim it can tackle your stubborn and dried-in laundry stains. You can pre-treat stains now and wash up to 7 days later. It's supposed to be able to remove oil, grease, makeup, blood, grass, soil, and more. And the OxiClean is made in USA. Place the gel stick directly onto the stain, press down to dispense the gel, and gently rub into fabric. Let stand for 5 minutes or up to a week depending on the severity of the stain. And the OxiClean Gel also seems to have done a great job attacking the stains, but probably not quite as well as the OxiClean Spray. At a price of $6 for 4 ounces or $1.50 per ounce is this Stain Rescue. Accidents happen, stains shouldn't. They claim it's fast, safe, strong, and universal. And the Emergency Stain Rescue is made in USA. Waiting until a stain is dry definitely isn't the way to rescue a shirt from a stain. However, with a name like Emergency Rescue, expectations are pretty high. As they say, the jury is still out, but it appears that the Emergency Stain Rescue has performed very well on some of the stained areas and not so well on others. Also, the price is $6 for 4 ounces or $1.50 per ounce is this Miss Mouse Stain Treater. $, pound, exclamation point, and ampersand happens, be prepared. They claim it's fast, safe, strong, and multi-use. And the Miss Mouse Stain Treater is made in USA. Just like the Emergency Stain Rescue container, the Miss Mouse press-to-spray design is quite the workout on the fingers and thumbs with so many stained areas. And the Miss Mouse made quite a bit of progress with some of the stains, but not as much progress as the Emergency Stain Rescue. At a price of $20 for 12 ounces or $1.67 per ounce is this Dissolve It brand. They claim it can remove stains even after dryer. They claim it's a professional stain remover for laundry, carpets, and upholstery. No fuss wine, hair dye, baby stain, and blood stain remover. And a Dissolve It is made in USA. With a name like Dissolve It and a price tag of $1.67 per ounce, expectations are pretty high. And the fabric is still wet and it's too soon to say for sure, but the Dissolve It doesn't seem to perform quite as well as the Emergency Stain Rescue brand. Let's throw together a homebrew stain remover with approximately 2 parts hydrogen peroxide and 1 part Dawn dish detergent. Just like the other brands, the homebrew will have 5 minutes to get as much work done as possible. And their homebrew stain remover actually seems to have done a better job than some of the stain remover products on the t-shirt, but not much for the oil stained fabric. Instead of using a stain remover, let's just toss the stained laundry into a washer with the Tide Pod. Without the help of a stain remover, most of the stained areas with the control look pretty bad. And the graphite oil caused a really bad stain in the white t-shirt. Finishing in 14th place is the homebrew stain remover. And the Stain Rescue wasn't able to rescue this badly stained fabric with a 13th place finish. Barely edging out the Stain Rescue is the Miss Mouse with a 12th place finish. Having a name like Attitude isn't enough to knock out a tough oil stain with an 11th place finish. And the pink may be capable of a miracle, but not on this oil stained fabric, finishing in 10th. And it's a 9th place finish for the very affordable Spray and Wash. And is out barely edged out the Spray and Wash, finishing in 8th. And it's hard to believe that the Control actually finished in 7th place. And the Dissolve It barely beat the Control with the 6th place finish. And the Draft is off to a great start with a top 5 finish. And the Oxy Gel is also off to a great start, finishing in 4th place in this category. And a shout out to the very affordable Shout for finishing in 3rd. And the Tide lives up to its reputation and did a great job with the 2nd place finish. And the best stain remover for removing the graphite oil stain is this OxiClean spray. Very impressive. Comparing the Homebrew to the OxiClean spray, there's a huge difference in performance. When it comes to dealing with pigment-based stains, just using laundry detergent alone isn't a good option, and it's a 14th place finish for the Control. And the Zout definitely performed better than the Control, but not by much, finishing in 13th. And the Drift also struggled, finishing in 12th place with the grape juice stain. Once again, the Emergency Rescue struggled with the stain, finishing in 11th. Tide did great with the oil stain, but it's a 10th place finish for the grape juice stain. And the Dissolve It struggled to dissolve the grape juice stain and finished in 9th place. And Miss Mouse definitely looks better than Dissolve It and finished in 8th. And the Attitude also made a lot of progress and finished in 7th place. The Spray and Wash barely edged out the Attitude and finished in 6th. A 5th place finish is not at all bad for a homebrew stain removal concoction. And the OxiClean Gel has done a pretty good job and finished in 4th. And the very affordable Shout once again pulled off a 3rd place finish. And the Pink claims to perform miracles and it did a really good job finishing in 2nd place. And the OxiClean Spray once again finished in 1st place by nearly wiping out the stain. Comparing the OxiClean Spray to the Control, there's a huge difference. Very impressive. Cousin Eddie makes a mean cup of coffee and it's a 14th place finish for the Dissolve It. There's definitely some value in using a stain remover as the Control finished in 13th place. And the Zout also struggled and finished in 12th. And the Oxy Gel did well on oil and grape juice but finished in 11th place with the coffee stain. If you're counting on Miss Mouth, you're better off keeping the coffee in your mouth and off your shirt. And Cousin Eddie's coffee has way too much attitude for the Attitude brand, finishing in 9th place. And it's an 8th place finish for the Draft. And the Spray and Wash barely edged out the Drift and finished in 7th. And the OxiClean did a great job with the graphite oil and grape juice and finished in 6th place with this stain. And the Tide also made more progress than most of the other brands with a 5th place finish. And it's a 4th place finish for the Emergency Stain Rescue on the coffee stain. And the Homebrew is far from perfect, but a 3rd place finish is pretty good. And the Shout once again finished ahead of most of the other brands and finished in 2nd place. And the Pink claims to perform miracles, and it did the best job with the 1st place finish. Comparing the 14th place Dissolve It to the Pink did a much better job. Mustard stains are extremely difficult to remove, and the Control finished in dead last. Unfortunately, it hasn't been a good showing so far for the Miss Mouse, finishing towards the bottom again in 13th. And the Drift also struggled with a 12th place finish. Once again, the Mustard has way too much attitude for the Attitude stain remover. And the OxiClean Gel also struggled with the Mustard stain, finishing in 10th. And the Emergency Rescue barely edged out the OxiClean Gel with a 9th place finish. Shout has done a great job throughout the showdown, but finished in 8th place with the Mustard stain. And the very affordable Spray and Wash finished in 7th place. And the OxiClean Spray continues to perform better than average with the 6th place finish. And the Homebrew once again has a good showing, finishing in 5th. And the Tide once again performed better than most of the other brands with a 4th place finish. And the Dissolve It brand made quite a bit of progress and finished in 3rd. And it's very close, but the Zout Stain Remover finished in 2nd place. And the Pink Stuff continues to impress with a 1st place finish on the Mustard stain. Comparing the Control to the Pink Stuff, there's a huge difference. Soy sauce consists of oil, dye, and protein, which makes for a very difficult stain to remove. And the Control, which includes just using laundry detergent only, finished in last place once again on the soy sauce. And the Zout did well with the mustard stain, but ended up in 13th place for the soy sauce. And the soy sauce really put the Attitude brand to the test with a 12th place finish. And the OxiClean Spray has done a great job throughout the showdown, but finished in 11th place this time. And the OxiClean Gel also struggled and finished in 10th place. The very affordable Shout brand barely edged out the OxiClean Gel with a 9th place finish. And the Tide struggled with grape juice and has struggled with soy sauce, finishing in 8th. And the Drift has struggled in several categories, but it's a 7th place finish this time. And the Stain Rescue did a pretty good job on the soy sauce stain with a 6th place finish. Dissolve It also did well, finishing in 5th place, and is challenging to even see the stain. And the Pink Stuff continues to impress, erasing most of the stain with a 4th place finish. And the Miss Mouse Stain Remover has struggled in several categories, but not this one, finishing in 3rd place. And the Homebrew really attacked the soy sauce and finished in 2nd place. And the very affordable Spray and Wash did a terrific job and finished in 1st place. Comparing the Control to the Spray and Wash, there's a huge difference in performance. Most of the brands performed very well on the ketchup stain, receiving the best possible rating of 1. However, Shout, Attitude, OxiClean Gel Stick, Miss Mouse, Homebrew, and the Control received a rating of 2. Most of the stain removers also did better than expected with the best possible rating of 1 on the gear oil stain. Only the Drift, Attitude, OxiClean Gel Stick, Control, and the Homebrew received a rating of 2. I applied the stain removers on a small area on the front of the red shirts to see if the stain removers caused the red shirts to fade in the treated area. All of the brands did perform well except for the Homebrew, which did cause a small area to experience a very small amount of fading. Do stain removers actually transfer stains to other parts of the shirt? Half of the shirts did receive the best possible rating of 1 for maintaining a bright white color. However, about half the shirts did receive a rating of 2, as they did become a little bit darker from stain transfer. So which stain remover is best? I combined the average rating with the average finish, and the pink stuff came out on top with a 2.4. OxiClean also performed very well in most categories with a score of 3.2. And the very affordable Shout brand performed almost as well as the OxiClean spray with an average score of 3.3. I always like the reviews in which the least expensive products outperform the more expensive ones, like this review. Really impressed with the pink stuff, Shout, as well as OxiClean. Also, I don't accept any sponsorships, and I personally purchase all the products and supplies used to test all the products to make sure that the reviews are unbiased. So thank you very much for supporting the channel, it makes a huge difference. Also, all the videos in this channel are viewer suggested, so if you have a video idea, I hope you'll take time to leave a comment. Thanks so much for watching, please take care and look forward to next time.
In today's video, we're going to be diving into the upcoming pattern, where we do have a big fork in the road. For a long time now, we've seen pretty good agreement between both our GFS and European models. Now we have one that shows some cold here before Christmas, followed by a lot of warmth after Christmas, during Christmas and after. And then we have the European model, which is showing a whole lot more cold. They both show cold, but one, the European, is about twice as cold, I would say, in the eastern states between the 20th and 24th time frame, and also about twice as much snowfall as the GFS model. So some big discrepancies, but for the mid-Atlantic Northeast, snowfall threats persist. Cold air is on the horizon for the eastern seaboard for at least a 4 or 5 day period here leading up to Christmas. Again, one of those two models showing it much worse than the other, though. When we look at the first 15 days, or in other words, essentially the first half of December, we see a lot of
Fallen leaves adorn my...
Yoo-hoo! Let my name echo in song! Bring it!
We've seen this pattern really hold strong through the first half here of December. Depending on what happens in the final half, we may end up with a map that looks like this by the time it's all said and done. Now, as we take a look at the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook from the National Weather Service, you can see that they are on board with colder air for these eastern portions of the nation.
Letting brave names echo!
September 25th. Most of that will be said and done by spring about the 20th.
Time to go.
So most of the cold, I would
Strike
say,
a
is
pose!
between the 20th
Bring
and
it!
the 24th across. We can see really strong signals of cold out west though, to get that positive DNA causing the cold winds to strong here for this time period as well. Now the 8 to 14 day outlook, this is the 23rd through the 29th, looks a lot different. We do see warmth in the west, but the heart of it actually being over the central states here. This is the heart of that warmth. And we do see the best chances for cooler temperatures still along the eastern seaboard during that time frame. Although I'm predicting as of right now that the 25th to 30th time frame does
Hear the echoes of the valley! Higher, hands on fire!
Wind strike as one with wind and cloud.
Yoo-hoo! Time to shine!
There's really no telling how long that is going to last if we don't really get much model guidance on the back end of that. We just know we're going to enter into that type of a pattern for now. So no end in sight, pretty much, is the way to put it. Now again, we're looking at the GFS model first. This is the less snowy and less cold of the two. We can see, however, this afternoon on Sunday the 15th, we do have snowfall persisting for a lot of western Virginia,
Letting
West
brave
Virginia,
names echo.
Maryland, a lot of Pennsylvania, and even up in the north, actually. We do have snow showers for the
Shower me
northwest
with
as well
praise.
out here happening. As we keep going overnight, we see that snowfall is going to persist in Pennsylvania, New York, northern New Jersey, and a bit of New England before it comes to an end. Giving way to a bit of a warmer day for Monday. The jet stream troughing a little bit for the west coast, and then especially here for the central states, and then a bit of a ridge here for the east coast. We do have a low right here. Probably a cold front extending down from it, and there probably is a warm front up here. So this is kind of the way I see the pattern right now. With the cold air kind of diving in behind that cold front. And again, as we approach the 20th time frame, this will reach the east overall. We do see snowfall still persisting for the northwest, as we mentioned, so that's going to be around quite a bit for the time being. Tuesday is an interesting day on the 17th. We have a much flatter jet stream here. This is what we call a zonal flow, and this usually brings about average to maybe slightly above average temperatures for most everybody. The only areas that would see below average temperatures is probably this pocket in here, where we do have snowfall again for the northwest, and even the northern plains here as well. Now we're going to see big changes after this point in a minute, starting Wednesday the 18th, as we see this colder pattern starting to take place. It all starts with the development of that positive PNA that I make sure to mention so often, where we see a ridge out west here, trough here over the Midwest, and then still for the high temperatures of Wednesday, we'll probably be dealing with some warmth along the Mid-Atlantic and southeast areas, but that's also going to be coming to an end here very shortly after this frame. We can see a lot of showery activities, even thunderstorm happening here over the boundary area between the cold and the warmth, which is fairly typical, so be on the lookout for some rainfall, even snowfall for the Great Lakes and interior northeast here taking place as this frontal area moves through. We can see that for the day on Thursday, we're seeing a much cooler pattern. I wouldn't say cold here, but cooler pattern in the east. Much cooler than it has been, at least, for a little bit here. We do see snowfall again for the northern plains, upper Midwest, and then also for the interior northeast as well, as all of this cold air is moving in. It's clear that there is a positive PNA setting up here. Warmer temperatures really prevailing here across the west, and this is what's directing the cold and snow towards the east, as it has done for the first half of December, as we mentioned. Let's keep going. I'm going to take us towards Friday the 20th, and this is when things look quite cool. Again, this is the warmer of the two models, but we still have a relatively cold look, especially on Friday here, the 20th, as cold air is kind of just freely diving here into the Mid-Atlantic northeast, even northern southeast, I would say, in here.
Ad Astra.
And we do have some snow showers. For a snowstorm to come together during this time, it would have to originate from here, and it would have to kind of move much closer to the coast. As of now, this wants to kind of just move straight offshore, and that's not going to lead to much of anything. As you can see, that would lead to almost no snowfall for anybody, at least not from that low. Saturday, still cold along the east coast here. Something like this is your very cold corridor. Very warm for the west coast compared to normal, and even for more of the Rockies, even up into the Canadian Rockies there. And some of this is extending to the central plains as well. Now, as we keep going towards Sunday, still cooler for the East Coast. But again, this is the warmer of the two models. We're actually going to see a more severe outlook from our second one we're going to look at in a moment. Monday the 23rd, we can see that this trough is now sort of beginning to lift off as warm air is pushing it out. So again, as we approach the actual date of Christmas, this cold will be on its way out, is the current expectations. It's still 200 hours out. There is some chance for change, but usually these temperature patterns are pretty accurate here in the medium to long range. Tuesday, the 24th here, we can see a lot of this warmth is pushing out the cold. I would say it's still pretty cool along the eastern seaboard here, but that is going to be ending very quickly. Especially, we have this pretty substantial storm system moving onshore to the west, bringing snowfall to the Cascades, Rockies, Sierra Nevada. This is going to be an impactful one. We even see showers and thunderstorms here throughout the more middle portions of the United States. As we take a look towards Wednesday, Christmas Day, finally we kind of lose the dippage and we're seeing a lot more flat jet stream.
Bring it! This isn't good!
Clouds high. The birds.
Let the world come alive!
But I would say we're probably near average, if not a little bit above average.
Let the mountain's veins
These
boil!
areas here, probably highly above
Time to
average.
go.
There is a like 10 to 15 degree difference between those two areas, between the one and the two, but they're both above average, if that makes sense. We still have snowfall occurring for the majority of the Rockies here for Christmas Day, which could be impactful. The day after Christmas here on Boxing Day, December 26th. A lot of the same, snowy in the west. And then Friday the 27th, we get a pretty major low trying to take place.
As one with wind and cloud.
Yoo-hoo! Bring it! Letting brave names echo! Huh?
28th, we do still see this major low here near the northern plains and upper Midwest. We do start to get some snowfall going from Minnesota, the Dakotas, Nebraska, even bits of Montana, Wyoming, and Colorado there as a result of that system. As we keep on going towards Sunday, we do begin to see some signs that maybe resurgence in the west.
Clouds high. The birds come.
Moving more towards the central station. What it does is before moving in towards the east. Let's see by Monday the 30th. And we do have to have a little bit of frost in the east by this time frame. It's quite minimal, but could bring about slightly below normal temperatures for some folks. We do have another low for the northwest, bringing heavy cascade snowfall. And we actually do have a pretty nice southern jet here moving into the deep south. So we get rainfall for around this Now that's practically the end of the model run. Here is literally the end of the model run. And we actually end up with a trough developing once again for the northwest. A ridge here to the central station, and it's slightly descending as we towards the east. All of these lines are kind of descending here. So probably quite a bit cooler here than it is in this pocket, but still the coldest is going to be here over the northwest, where we do see lots and lots of snowfall as well. Now let's take a look at the colder of the two.
Hear the echoes of the valley!
Kind of walk our way through it.
As one with wind and cloud.
Yoo-hoo! Let my name echo in some...
Here around Thursday the 19th. We get a low developing near Pennsylvania, New Jersey. Heavy snowfall corridor. And these pockets here are a lot more of an interior snowstorm for the east. But it comes right as some colder airs moving in, and we see Pennsylvania, especially northern Pennsylvania into upstate New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, get slammed with some pretty intense snowfall. And it's cold 18th, 19th, and into the 20th here. But we start to cool down even more here for the 20th with some lake effect snowfall, even an interior system. And again, we have two pieces of energy, and we talked about this yesterday, the southern piece and the northern piece, and they're closer together now. We have this northern piece up here, the southern piece just right here. And if they could just inch closer together, we could easily have a low set up more in between, which would be when we start to talk about some significant snowfall, especially closer to the coast, for this kind of Saturday, Sunday time frame of next week, so about 6-7 days out. But as of right now, both models are not showing that. But the one thing I will say about the European model here is this northern piece of energy does bring some snowfall to the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast, as well as the Great Lakes. Nothing huge, but it does bring an additional amount of snowfall after we've seen numerous snowstorms. This is when the cold really starts to move in, Sunday the 22nd. This is, I mean, substantial. The jet stream is really, really high up in the west. Vertical straight down into the east. And just like this would bring frigid temperatures around Sunday the 22nd. I can't stress that enough. We were talking temperatures maybe 15, 20, 25, 30 degrees below your normal, maybe more for some spots if we see something like this. Whereas the GFS is having us much closer to like 10, 15, 20 degrees below normal. We could be talking about 10, 15, 20 degrees more below normal on this European model, which is a huge departure from what's typical, obviously. We even get more lake effect snowfall going. This has been a huge lake effect snowfall year, and we're seeing more for Michigan here, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New York potentially. That would be crazy. As we keep going, Monday is not much warmer, And interestingly enough, around this Monday the 23rd time frame, we do have some interesting precipitation happening here, very close to the coast. If we could get more developing here, this could also bring about perhaps a snowfall situation to the eastern seaboard. That remains unknown for now. That kind of moves off. We continue with the cold, but look at this. We get a bit of a clipper system that moves down into the Midwest. Then the deep south almost wants to become a southern slider there before moving offshore. That could be an interesting situation right there. I'll point it out. You probably saw it, obviously. But it wants to bring snowfall in kind of like this corridor. The main area of low pressure moving along this line right here. And that could definitely spell an interesting southern snowfall situation if we saw something along those lines. And this can obviously change a ton. That goes for, you know, better or worse for cold and snow lovers. So definitely could be interesting. And it comes with a really sharp area of cold air that almost wants to move up the coast too. When we see it move off here, it's just too far offshore. If this just trended a little bit further west, just like this, I mean, that's not that huge of a shift in the grand scheme of things. That would be a huge difference in the overall outcome for the East Coast. We even get some, right here, New England snowfall still from it, so you can tell that if it just moved a little bit closer to the coast, we're talking about areas in here overall seeing snowfall now all of a sudden. So that could be a really huge situation. And then really we're left with a milder pattern again from the 25th here through, and that's literally Christmas Day right here, by the way. That's the high temperatures of Christmas Day. Boxing Day here. This model really doesn't have us that warm for Christmas. This is Christmas Day. I think it's going to be quite a bit warmer than that. And also after, I think, is really when the warmth is really, really moving in, like 26, 27, 28 looks to be the heart of it. We do get a pretty major storm here along the east as well, at the same time as we see a major one in the west. So we see this bringing heavy snowfall to the Cascades, Sierra Nevada, and Northern Rockies. And we get this kind of tag team of low pressure systems here across kind of the Midwest, also bringing some precipitation towards the end of December. Now for the total precipitation, we end up with a lot for the Northwest. This is a huge amount. Then a lot of the east here, we're seeing, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4 inches of rainfall over the next 15 or so days. That would be huge as well. Let's look at the anomalies, and this is just looking really good for a lot of folks, especially the Northwest here, where there's been a lot less recently. More Midwest areas also seeing quite a bit, and the only bad news I have is the East Coast is seeing slightly below normal precipitation, but they have seen quite a bit recently, and this is still only slightly below normal, so there will be some precipitation in there. Not the worst outlook in the world. Here's the total snowfall in the GFS, and the one thing we'll see them both agree on is the snow for the west. Tons of it. The east here, we see some plowable snowfall, especially for the higher elevations, but mostly dealing with 2 to 6 inches there in the blues. We're going to see a way different story here on the European model, where we are seeing, again, similarly huge amounts out west. Similarly large amounts here for the Northern Plains, Upper Midwest, and Great Lakes, where we could see 10 inches plus in some swaths. But for a lot of the interior Mid-Atlantic and Northeast here, we are seeing 6 to 10 in the purples and 10 to 15 in the pinks. So this is a big time increase from what we saw on that GFS model. And here is that kind of diving southern slider type storm. Could bring, you know, 1, 2, 3 inches if we saw something like this happen. So we'll keep an eye on that potential storm signal around Christmas. Now, the temperature pattern here, as we take a look, a little bit warmer for the coming days, as I mentioned. Thursday, there's one big change.
Wind strider.
We see the really move in. Friday, Saturday, it worsens. But again, the greens are 10 to 15 degrees.
All right.
Pretty much the worst.
Let the mountain's veins boil!
That is a pretty good
Fallen leaves, adorn my night.
and then we see that kind of instantly
Let the world come alive!
The European model, we're going to see a lot more significant. As we take a look, this is Thursday. It looks almost identical, but Friday,
Higher, pants on fire!
they're moving in by Saturday. It's very clear that this is going to be a lot more significant than what the GFS model is showing. we see really significant cold air. That's in those purplish blues, 15 to 25 degrees below normal, and the magentas are 25 to 35 degrees below normal. We see that dive straight in for the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, and Northeast. Even the deep south and southeast seeing 20, 25 degrees below normal here. This is the 23rd of December. Here's the 24th, and then here's the 25th on Christmas. This one also shows warmth for the 27th, 28th, 29th, 30th time frame. So regardless, we spend most of the warmth between the 25th and 30th, but apparently this model will
Letting crave names echo.
6, so a little different there. Anyway, with all that being said, we're going to have all these things.
Clouds high. The birds come.
Strike a pop.
So we're just going to continue to track it daily. So be sure to subscribe. We upload every single day. Even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it. Leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
So much for joining us. Just time for a quick recap of the week. And as this is our final show of 2021, we thought we'd check in on the events that started all of it. The January 6th insurrection. That's right. This year started with that and against all better judgment kept going. And while the human cause of the riots is still very much stonewalling investigators, this week saw developments regarding some of its rank-and-file participants.
A Capitol riot suspect on the FBI's most wanted list has turned up now in Belarus. The fugitive's name is Evan Newman. He's from California. Here he is during an interview with state media in Belarus. Newman claims he's innocent and a victim of political persecution.
Oh, great idea, Evan. You're worried about political persecution, so you go to Belarus, a country run by a man who calls himself the last and only dictator in Europe. You can read all about their free-flowing exchange of ideas in any of Belarus's publications like Redacted magazine and All Praise Our Glorious Leader Who Isn't Bald quarterly. Now, other participants in the insurrection have been facing consequences. The QAnon shaman, a name I still cannot believe I have to say out loud, is awaiting sentencing after pleading guilty. And then there is Jenna Ryan, a Texas real estate agent who entered the Capitol and later got attention for tweeting, "Definitely not going to jail. Sorry, I have blonde hair, white skin, a great job, a great future, and I'm not going to jail," which is, on one hand, a dangerously brazen tweet, but on the other, a pretty great Real Housewives catchphrase. I have blonde hair, white skin, and I'm not going to jail. She's the new Erica Jane, and I don't say that lightly. But to be fair, Jenna Ryan was right. She's not going to jail because she's actually going to prison. Earlier this month, she was sentenced to 60 days behind bars, and this week sat down with local news to make it absolutely clear she's learned nothing from this.
Ryan flew with friends on a private plane to the Stop the Steal rally in D.C. before going back to her hotel. But while watching news coverage, she decided to go back and posted a video saying she was going to storm the Capitol.
So I was just like, we're storming the Capitol. And I meant we're storming with our words and we're going down there to tell them, it's free speech.
You know what? We are armed and dangerous. This is the beginning.
What are you talking about, you Marjorie Taylor Wannagreen? Storming with words? That's not a thing. That's never been a thing. If you look up thing in the dictionary, I'm pretty sure it says not storming with words. Jenna also outlined how she's preparing for her 60-day sentence, which is, if nothing else, on brand.
It's all you can think about. I'm watching all the YouTube videos on how prison is, how to go to prison, what to do.
All right, I don't know what's weirder there, that she seems so casual, or that an adult has to go to YouTube to learn how prison is. I'll tell you, it's bad, Jenna, really bad. Also, that is not what YouTube should be used for. YouTube is for watching 2-minute movie trailers, 40-minute explainer videos pointing out all the Easter eggs you missed in that trailer, and TikTok compilations because you're too old to learn TikTok, but too desperate to let it pass you by completely. That is what YouTube is for. That, and of course, destroying the world by melting people's brains with utter nonsense. Speaking of which, in the least surprising move imaginable, Jenna Ryan launched a podcast on her YouTube channel this week. Here is a clip from Monday's first episode.
I want you to be able to come to my channel and listen to what I have to say and be well caught up on alternative news. I just made that up. That's what I want.
We're in hell. Look, Ryan is not alone in not learning important lessons from January 6th. Take Representative Paul Gosar, who bragged that he helped organise the very first Stop the Steal rally in Arizona and tweeted various versions of Stop the Steal at least 25 times in the run-up to the insurrection. Gosar is still very much in Congress and just this week was criticised for pulling this shit.
A U.S. congressman is under fire today for posting a video which simulates him killing one of his colleagues. Republican Paul Gosar from Arizona shared the clip on social media, which is altered from a popular anime series. In it, a cartoon figure with his face attacks a figure with the face of Democratic Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. It also appears to go after President Biden with swords.
Okay, clearly there is a lot going on there, but just in terms of sheer weirdness, I'm not sure that I can get over the idea that Paul Gosar, this guy, is in any way familiar with anime. When I see Paul Gosar, I think a few things. I think arsehole, troll, pluck Sam the Eagle, guy who looks like he occasionally Googles why aren't there more breakfast soups. But anime fan? This guy. Shame on me, I guess, for judging a book by its cover. Please carry on and enjoy Neon Genesis Evangelion, subs not dubs, till the day they put you in the ground. But look, instead of simply apologising, Gosar doubled down, tweeting this meme in response saying, "It's a cartoon, relax." And look, it is. Kind of. Because on one hand, it'd be disingenuous of me to pretend that Gosar tweeting a poorly edited anime video meant that he was going to physically attack AOC. I don't think he's going to do that, not least because if he did, he would lose. But also, just because something isn't a literal threat doesn't mean it can't still inspire real-world harm. Because if we've learned anything from January 6th, and it seems that we have not learned nearly enough, is that it's very easy for a joke to become reality and that a troubling number of people don't seem to understand the difference between storming the Capitol metaphorically and physically. And knowing full well that this video might now show up if Jenna Ryan searches YouTube for what to do in prison after Capitol riots, allow me to take this opportunity to address her directly. Jenna, from the bottom of my heart, thanks for watching. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, sound off in the comments with what you want Big Swingin' John to talk about in a future video. The fun continues in my Instagram story, so check that out. And as always, new merch in the description. Namaste. And now, this.
And now, the many questions of Fox and Friends' Brian Kilmeade.
Well, how do diners have 20 pages in their menu? They can make anything, right? How do they do that? Why do all newborns have that same blanket? What great American decided that you needed a bun with a hot dog? Do you know? What's the difference between SoulCycle and spinning? Do we know? And why did it hit the iceberg? Do we know? What do bears eat? Do they eat squirrels? Why are bears always alone? Do you think the sharks know it's Shark Week? What part of the cow is the skirt? It makes you question everything. Like, why was it ever the International House of Pancakes? But how does a baby retire? What if a tree could just hover? Is Spam meat? What's this called? Why are turnips so seasonal? Turnips. Do you have turnips more than once a year? Why don't we have turnips all year round? Because the Pilgrims did?
In the image of the wilderness.
There we go. Our main story tonight concerns unions, the institutions that brought us the weekend, the middle class, and in the case of the International Ladies Garment Workers Union, an absolute banger of a song. And before we play this, I have a favourite singer here. See if they're yours too.
Look for the union label when you are buying a coat dress of love. Remember somewhere our union soaring, our wages going to be the youth and run the house. We work hard, but who's complaining? Next to the aisle, we were paying our way.
I mean, they look so happy. It's a video so uplifting, you barely pause to wonder how many of them are dead now. And by the way, yes, my favourite singer is the "And Run the House" lady. She's the only one who gets to have a dramatic entrance. Also, she's got a fabulous mushroom haircut, wide lapels, and the voice of an angel. Every singer in that song is a star, but she is the brightest in the galaxy. Now, that ad, if it weren't obvious from every single thing about it, is from the early 1980s. And unfortunately, since then, union membership has declined considerably. Today, just over 10% of American workers belong to a union. That is just half the rate it was in 1983, meaning we're currently living in one of the worst times for organised labour in our country's history. And it's not like the demand isn't there. Nearly half of non-union workers say they would like to be in a union, and a lot of workplaces do seem like a natural fit for one. Take Amazon. You've likely heard the infamous stories of drivers for the company being forced to pee in bottles in order to make quotas. Stories that Amazon initially denied, then apologised for denying, finally admitting that, yeah, OK, their drivers do sometimes have to piss in bottles. It's like the old adage, 'tis better to seek forgiveness than permission, unless this is about piss bottles, in which case, take a look at yourself, man. What are you even doing?
Fate is upon you.
Mahatma Gandhi. And yet, despite that and other reports of abysmal working conditions, earlier this year, an organising drive for Amazon warehouse workers in Bessemer, Alabama, was voted down by more than 2-1, which may seem like a clear-cut case of workers deciding for themselves to reject a union. But the truth is, it's a lot more complicated than that, because if you have never been through a union organising drive yourself, you might assume that a union vote is a completely free and fair election. That is an illusion fed by executives like Jeff Bezos, America's least inspiring astronaut, through statements like this.
We don't believe that we need a union to be an intermediary between us and our employees. But of course, at the end of the day, it's always the employee's choice. And that's how it should be.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I'm personally not comforted by hearing one of the richest men on earth say, "It's your choice." No matter the context, all I can hear is, "Spear or arrow, how would you prefer to be hunted?" It's your choice. But it is worth knowing just how many ways Amazon and many other companies try to influence their employees' choice, because they can exert a huge amount of pressure. So tonight, let's take a look at union busting. What it is, how it works, and how few consequences companies face for doing it. And let's start with a very basic breakdown of how a union drive works. The first thing to know is that any employer may recognise a union based solely on majority support. So they can let employees unionise immediately, but they are not required to do that unless it's been chosen through a secret ballot vote. So unsurprisingly, that is how most unions end up getting recognised. And the first key step in union busting is preventing things from ever reaching that point. Because for an election to happen at all, 30% of workers must sign a union card expressing an initial interest in union representation. But Amazon, for instance, has instructed its managers to be on high alert for the slightest sign that that might happen, as this leaked internal video shows.
If you see warning signs of potential organizing, notify your building HRM and GM site leader immediately. The most obvious signs would include use of words associated with unions or union-led movements like living wage or steward.
Wow. I mean, set aside how completely mask-off it is to treat the phrase living wage like the first warning sign of a stroke. You would also think a nearly $2 trillion company like Amazon could spring for better animation than Jib Jab. But if enough workers do sign cards, the election process is then underway. And in that process, companies have some pretty huge advantages, because obviously, when you're on their premises, they have unfettered access to you, while also having the ability to keep union reps out. And many companies take full advantage of that access. Amazon, for instance, inundated workers with anti-union signs all over their workplace, even putting them inside bathroom stalls. They also used workers' contact info to send multiple anti-union text messages to them per day, and held mandatory meetings that seemed designed to spread fear.
They had somebody who was like the captain of the union busting, who would come down and teach, like...
What was the official title of the class?
They just called it like union training, that's it. Which is funny because it's not union training. It's it's union busting 101.
Right, it's not union training if the explicit goal is to kill the union. It'd be like taking a dog training class from Cruella de Vil. Although, no, not the one that's a misunderstood bohemian or whatever. I'm talking about the real Cruella.